Hey everyone! So today I wanted to make a video all about why I love Barbie. This is sort of a mini-series I'm going to be doing that focuses on specific doll lines and why I like them. So like the story behind how I got into them and what they mean to me and what they mean to my collection and what I love about the line in general. Also, I've been getting a lot of people requesting me to basically do more videos about my Barbies. And I definitely will be showing collection videos and stuff. My Barbie collection is enormous. Like, I have well over 200 90s Barbies alone, and I'm just talking Barbie herself. So because of that, it takes a lot of prep time, and I have to figure out like how I want to divide those videos and whether I want to do them in multiple parts and stuff, because it's physically impossible for me to like show all my Barbies in one video, even probably from one decade alone. So I hope you guys understand. So to kind of kickstart some of my more Barbie focused videos, I'm going to be doing this one. So I'm not going to get like super into how I got into Barbie, in the sense that I've already talked about the story a few times on a few different videos, so I don't want to get redundant, but basically my grandparents from my mom's side gave me and my sister some dolls from the Salvation Army that they worked at, and they were really like grubby looking trashed Barbies. My first one was Ice Capade's Barbie, who is named Christina. I still have her, and I also got All-American Ken, who I named Kevin, who I still have. And they were my first Barbies. They were my first fashion dolls. Up until that point, I don't think I had any dolls. I don't think I even had baby dolls. And it was Barbie that really got me into dolls. It was the first type of doll that I ever really encountered, and without her, I don't know if I would have gotten into them. Because when I was growing up in the 90s, there weren't a lot of different types of dolls. There might have been like some alternatives, but they didn't last long. There was really nobody in the doll world that could compare to Barbie. She was it. She was where it was all at. Barbie dominated all the toy aisles, and everyone knew who Barbie was. I'm actually really glad in that way that when I was younger, I didn't have a lot of options beyond like maybe getting Disney dolls, simply because I think that I would have been a lot more attracted to doll lines like Bratz that had more ethnic dolls and that were more like urban feeling, as opposed to Barbie slightly more girly, more blonde tone. So I'm really glad of that, because if it weren't for getting into Barbie first, I might not even notice her these days. And it's such a huge part of my life and such a huge part of my collection that I can't imagine not having Barbie be part of it. One of the main things that my sister and I have always really appreciated about the Barbie franchise is her friends and family. We are really strong collectors of friends and family. Like, we have a lot of Ken dolls, Skipper, Kelly, Stacy, Chrissy, random like Barbie kids. And I've always loved like Christy, Kyra, Teresa, Midge, and a bunch of her random friends. I got really into the Generation girls. And we, even as like little kids, would make a point of collecting these different friends and these different family members. It was exciting. It was exciting to have like those options, because, you know, back in the days before, you know, Bratz and all of the lines kind of like Bratz or Monster High, that was sort of the way of getting that like mold diversity and getting the size differentiation and like the age difference, because Barbie's family and friends represented a bunch of different ethnicities and a bunch of different, you know, sizes and ages. That really diversified our doll world. So when we played, we had the options of making, you know, an entire family and of different genders and of different, you know, ages, and that was so cool. And we loved that. We loved kind of like having that medley. And not only that, but Barbie was always known for having like fashions and play sets and accessories marketed for her family members. So Ken had his own fashion line, and Skipper had her own fashion line, and Stacy had hers. Especially when I was growing up, like, it was, you know, in the 90s and early 2000s, and that was when Barbie had like the most fashion packs and play sets and stuff. And, you know, doll lines like Skipper kind of grew to be their own like separate thing, slightly away from Barbie. I think that's something that I can really appreciate artistically about Barbie, is that, you know, she can represent a whole bunch of different ethnicities, and like Barbie herself can have different hair colors and skin colors, and I love how Barbie can kind of morph into different, things, that she's not really always just like, blonde and girly, that Mattel has always taken the time to kind of give you different options. Even way back in the day before there were African American dolls, the original Barbies still came in a variety of hair colors, and that's so cool that Barbie herself can be different. And then on top of that, there's, her whole franchise with her family and her friends also represents a whole bunch of different, types of people. And there's really not many doll lines that are as developed as Barbie. Like even a doll line like Bratz, which is probably the second biggest one to Barbie out there. They're like Bratz kids and Bratz babies, and they're like basically different age groups of Bratz. Those didn't last nearly as long, whereas you think about Kelly and Stacy and Skipper, they're still around. And I think that's really awesome that you can see how like Barbie's entire world kind of evolves, and there are certain friends that will come and go over time, like Midge is one that has come and gone, and it's really cool to see how all of these different characters evolve and adapt over time. My sister and I always really loved specifically like getting sister sets of dolls, so like ones that had like Barbie, Skipper, Stacy, Kelly, or some combination of them. We really loved those because we loved splitting the sets. Like we were all about that, like we're sisters and we can have Barbie's sisters, and I loved getting typically like the Barbie and Kelly, and my sister liked getting like the Stacy or Skipper. And when we were really young, we really liked, I would have the Barbie and she would get the Kelly. Those sister sets have a really special place in my collection and in my heart and in my memories, and that's why we have so many and we've collected so many, and why, even now when we're in the doll aisles, we're really tempted to get like the newer sister sets. And I love how right now there's so much emphasis on Barbie and her sisters. It's just something that has always really drawn me and my sister to Barbie, and I think it's super awesome that kids today can enjoy that too. Another reason why I love Barbie is because she's always sort of been like the foundation for our doll collection as well as for our doll games. So back when we played dolls all the time, which, like once in a while we'll still bust out the dolls and play with them, but honestly my interest just isn't there as much. I like playing with them in a different way now. When we were kids and we played all the time, it was mostly like Barbie play sets and Barbie clothes and Barbie accessories that we would use, because again, she had the most diversity. You could get the most different things from the Barbie line. There just wasn't any doll type out there that had as much stuff as Barbie did. Barbie though, like she dominates, and I'm all about like clothes and stuff for my dolls, especially like as someone who loves play sets. Like I love play sets. Setting up doll scenes was always one of my favorite things to do. I would spend like hours just making our Barbie setup super awesome. And what did we use? All Barbie stuff for the most part. And we had some like knockoff kind of things too, but it was mostly Barbie things, and it was just so easy to get her stuff. We've also always had the most number of Barbie dolls. Like my Barbie and Barbie affiliated collection makes up probably more than half of the dolls in my collection of like 2,800 dolls, which is pretty insane. Just can't imagine like if all of my Barbies disappeared, how that would feel, because we've just always had them. Like every weekend after my mom died, I would go out and get Barbies, and when we go to the flea market, we'd always find Barbies, and now we always come home with the most Barbies because, there's just not as much like Disney and Bratz stuff out there when it comes secondhand. That's something I've always really loved about Barbie, is how accessible she is and like how many opportunities you have to get her. I mean, most stores still carry Barbie, whereas honestly, like where I live, most stores don't carry Bratz. And the Monster High section has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller at the stores near where I live. But Barbie holds her own. Barbie always has stuff. Even in stores that don't traditionally carry dolls, there are still Barbies. Even though she doesn't go on sale as much as some of the other dolls, I just feel like there's always, something Barbie to look at, and secondhand, it really reflects that too, because I find the most Barbie things secondhand. And if I wasn't collecting Barbie, I don't know what I'd come home with every weekend. And it's cool because Barbie's been manufactured for so many years, since the 60s, that it just gives you like a better statistical chance of finding her, because you can find Barbies from the 60s all the way up to dolls that are still in stores secondhand. It's super cool, and it's just so much fun to kind of get like random lots and see like the different Barbie dolls from the different decades that I can find, and how like it seems like most people who grew up with Barbie had Barbies from multiple decades, unless they didn't collect secondhand at all, because she's just so available and so accessible. And that being said, because Barbie was made for so long, and because they still continue to make Barbie, she's sort of the reason why my interest got sparked in older dolls, because I did end up with a lot of secondhand dolls growing up, and I still collect a lot of secondhand dolls. Obviously, that's most of my collection, and having a Barbie dolls from like older generations made me curious and made me want to know. And I remember as a little kid when I'd get a box doll that was out of date, and I would see the pamphlet and I would see how the Barbie logo was different, and I would see how the fashions were different. It made me just appreciate the history behind the franchise so much more, and no other doll brand really has that, because Barbie is the only one that's been around that long. I mean, even like American Girl, which has been out since like 1986, it doesn't have that much history. Barbie does. And I mean, I feel like most people who grew up playing with dolls, whether they were in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or 2000s, we kind of all have that in common. Like most people who were lucky enough to have toys had a Barbie or experienced a Barbie, and I think that's super awesome. That's really unique about the Barbie franchise, whereas I've met a lot of people, and when I've talked about Bratz, they don't even know what they are. And I mean, Bratz is probably the second biggest doll brand out there, and people don't know what that is, or Monster High. But I would say the majority of people know who Barbie is, and they just assume a fashion doll is a Barbie. That's what an impact Barbie's had on history and on, you know, toys and on dolls. And without her, none of us would have fashion dolls. It wouldn't exist, because Barbie's where the idea came from. Even though, you know, things like Bratz or Monster High are set up totally differently, you know, they're based around multiple characters, and they're more like alternative looking, and they're not as conventional seeming. They're still stemmed from that basic core idea of this fashion doll. Even if you don't collect Barbie, you have to give her props that without her we wouldn't have all these different doll types. I love how, even though Barbie's been around since the 60s, her core idea has always been very much the same. Like, who Barbie is and what she represents and how she's portrayed is still so much the same. And of course she's evolved to reflect the different styles of the time, and she's had different friends and family come in and out, and how she's marketed has also evolved to attract the newer generation. Still Barbie Roberts. She still has friends, she still has family, she still has tons and tons of stuff. I mean, no doll still has as many fashions and playsets as her. It's crazy. And I mean, I still go into the toy aisle and drool over what they have for Barbie. There's still this strong emphasis on careers and, you know, how you can do anything and be anything. And she's still this very wholesome image. Like, Barbie isn't really truly controversial. I mean, what people consider controversial about Barbie are really innocent things. Like, most of all, she's just this basic fashion doll. She just represents what fashion dolls are all about. It's not like this really involved concept. It's like a doll that you dress that does whatever you want. And I think that that's what I always loved most about dolls, is they were this like little person that I can impose my imagination on. That whatever I wanted to happen, I could create. And because Barbie had the most stuff and the most options and was the most accessible, that was the easiest doll for me to play with and to create things with. I love how she represents that, how Barbie isn't like woven into this really strict storyline, that she just evolves and adapts to the time that she's in, but that it's still really about your imagination and the kid playing with the doll's imagination and what they want to do with Barbie. And they give you so many options of what you can do and so many different types of dolls. And it's awesome that they make curvy Barbies and tall Barbies and short Barbies now. I mean, that's outstanding. That's incredible. And, you know, it's kind of sad that kids these days don't seem as interested in dolls because of technology. I mean, there's so much more option for, like, that kind of physical diversity than there ever was when I was a kid, or when people who grew up in the 60s or 70s ever had. And no matter what happens, You know, I can't imagine my collection without Barbie, and I hope that she's around forever. She's come to mean so many different things to me. I have so many fond memories of playing with Barbies, like the way that she inspired us and sparked our imaginations, and how to this day I still feel the same way when I see a pile of Barbies. I still feel that same excitement. And you know, I might not buy Barbies at the store like I used to, just because, you know, I have to be a little bit smarter about how I spend my money, but that doesn't mean I don't enjoy her as much as the other doll types I collect. I really, really do love Barbie, and if I didn't collect her, I think my life would be a lot more boring. Those of you who've never tried collecting Barbie, I really encourage you to, you know, look into it and appreciate the history and appreciate how she's evolved and appreciate what Barbie has done for the rest of the dolls in the world that exist, and how, you know, a lot of them wouldn't be here without her. I just want to say too, I've been having a problem with my comments lately where YouTube will send me notifications about comments and I go to respond to them and they're gone, and then they pop up like hours or days later. So if I don't get back to your comment within like a day, there might be some problem that your comment's not showing up for me to approve and comment back to, so I'm really sorry. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, love your dolls, love yourself, and love your life.